We are living longer than ever before. The challenge is no longer simply adding years to life, it is adding life to those years. Researchers describe this as the difference between lifespan and health span. Lifespan is how long we live, health span or healthy life expectancy is how long we remain healthy, independent, and able to do the things that matter to us. Globally, health span or healthy life expectancy is about 63 years, while lifespan or life expectancy is just over 73 years. In Australia, it's about 72 years for men and 74 years for women. In Australia, many people live to their 80s, leaving a long gap between where life continues, but strength, mobility, confidence, and independence may gradually narrow. Let's look at the table here for a moment. In Australia, average life expectancy is around 81 years for men and 85 years for women. But look at the health span. The healthy life expectancy is lower, about 72 years for men and 74 years for women. In the United States, the gap is even wider, especially for men. The important point is not the exact number for every individual. It is the gap between living longer and living well. Now, the second table makes this even more personal, more evident. If we compare actual average retirement age with health span, Australian men may have around 7 years between retirement and healthy life expectancy, and Australian women around 11 years. However, you can see in the United States, it is quite miserable. For men, the average retirement age may already sit beyond average healthy life expectancy. That is sobering. Many people work for decades towards retirement, but the body may already be losing the reserve needed to enjoy retirement. So one of the most important questions is simply not how long will I live? It is how long can I live well? And what if one of the biggest modifiable determinants of health span was not another miracle supplement or expensive longevity program or exotic blood test? What if it was something you've had all your life? Your muscle. This video is the overview, the big picture. Later videos in this playlist will go deeper into each topic. If you're interested in healthy aging based on evidence rather than hype, consider subscribing. In this series, I will separate good science from good marketing and explore practical ways to preserve muscle function and independence over 60. Most people think muscles are simply there to move us around. Yes, they do move us around. In reality, they are one of the body's largest and most metabolically important organs. They help regulate blood sugar, store protein, support the skeleton, and provide reserve when illness, surgery, and injury strikes. More importantly, they allow us to keep doing the ordinary things that make life worth living. Getting out of a chair, climbing the stairs, traveling, gardening, climbing, carrying groceries, playing with grandchildren, and continuing to live independently. That idea fits closely with how the World Health Organization describes healthy aging. It is not simply the absence of disease, it is maintaining functional ability, being able to keep doing things that you value. Muscle is central to the goal because muscle is not just about movement, it's about reserve. As we age, our muscles naturally change. Muscle mass can begin to decline from midlife, often becoming more noticeable after 50 and accelerating in later decades, especially with inactivity. Add to that illness, poor nutrition, or long periods of sitting. Doctors call age-related loss of muscle mass and function sarcopenia. When strength declines even faster, we call that dynapenia. At the same time, bone density may fail, leading to osteopenia or osteoporosis full on. So together, sarcopenia, dynapenia, and osteopenia help explain frailty. So less muscle, less strength, less bone reserve, and less capacity to recover. We also become less responsive to protein and exercise. That is sometimes called anabolic resistance. It does not mean older muscle cannot grow or adapt. It means the signal often needs to be stronger and more consistent. Add slower recovery, reduced balance, or declining strength and power, and it becomes easier to understand why frailty becomes more common with age. Frailty is not just being old. It is what happens when the body has less reserve to cope with illness, injury, surgery, infection, or simply a simple fall. This is why muscle loss is not only a gym issue, it is a health span, health life expectancy issue. That is also one of the biggest differences between training your muscle, your body at 30 years of age and training it at 60 and beyond. It is not the exercise after 60 years of age that should become gentle. It should become more deliberate, more intentional, and recovery time matters more. Joint health matters more, balance matters more, protein matters more, progression matters more, and the cost of getting it wrong becomes much higher. A younger person may recover from poor technique, too much volume, or lifting beyond their ability. At 60 or 70 or 80, the same mistake may result in a shoulder injury, tendon problem, back strain, or fall that takes months to recover. So the goal is not to avoid intensity. The goal is to earn it through good technique, gradual progression, and respect for recovery time. Here is the encouraging part. Muscle remains one of the most trainable tissues in the aging body. One small but landmark study in this field was published a few decades ago in 1990 in the Journal of American Medical Association, JAMA. Researchers studied frail nursing home residents, many around 90 years old, some as old as 96. These were among the frailest people in the community. But after supervised high resistance strength training 3 times a week, leg strength increased by about 174%. Muscle size increased, and walking performance improved significantly. Think about that for a moment. If people in their 90s can still become dramatically stronger, perhaps it is not age itself that's holding us back. Often it is undertraining, fear, illness, inactivity, poor nutrition, or simply never being shown how to start safely. As I often say, even if you are late to the party, you can still have a good time. More recently, research tells a similar story. In 2024, a long-term follow-up from a Danish study found that people who performed heavy resistance training around retirement age maintained better leg strength in later years. The message here is that older muscle continues to respond when we challenge it appropriately. The modern evidence is refreshingly simple. Consistency beats complexity. Current Australian guidelines recommend muscle strengthening activities at least twice a week, together with regular balance, mobility, and coordination training. Recent Sarcopenia guidance reaches much more the same conclusion. For many older adults, 2 to 3 well-designed resistance sessions each week is a realistic and effective target. Full body programs work well. Major muscle groups should be included, and gradual progression almost always beat chasing the perfect routine. That does not mean training to exhaustion, it means training with purpose. Squatting, leg pressing, stepping, pushing, pulling, carrying, and core control all matter because they reflect real life function. The goal here is not to impress anyone in the gym. The goal is to function better in real life. Power. Power deserves just as much attention as strength. Getting out of a chair quickly, climbing stairs, catching yourself when you stumble, and preventing falls all depends on producing force and power quickly. Power tends to decline earlier than strength, yet it remains highly trainable. So is balance. Simple exercises such as fast sit to stands, controlled step ups, single leg standing, tandem walking, or farmer carries can make enormous difference to everyday function. Recovery. Recovery also needs to be part of the program. It is very important. Older muscle still adapts beautifully, but it usually needs more time to recover. Hard sessions should be balanced with easier days, not because we are becoming fragile, but because we are training intelligently rather than simply training harder. Protein becomes increasingly important too. Because of the anabolic resistance, older muscle often requires a stronger signal from both exercise and dietary protein. Supplements can help when food intake is inadequate, but they do not replace resistance training. Resistance training, exercise, and nutrition work together. Longevity advice easily becomes complicated. Health span. Health span advice is more practical and more useful. We can talk about supplements and advanced aging biology in later videos, but the foundation remains familiar. Resistance training, enough protein, sensible recovery, good sleep, balanced work, and staying physically active. So this series is not about becoming a bodybuilder. It is about preserving the strength to recover from illness, the balance to avoid the fall that changes everything, and the reserve the reserve to continue living life on your own terms. So over the coming videos, we will explore sarcopenia, loss of muscle more in detail, the protein that we need, and others, creatine, resistance training, recovery, grip strength, falls, and a few other topics, muscle after illness surgery, and how to build and preserve muscle safely throughout later life. So that is what muscle health after 60 is really about, and that may be one of the most important investments you will ever make.